A special guest here today, one of the toughest women in the world, the former bantamweight champion, UFC star Holly Holm. Holly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm
Feeling
good.
all right? Feeling good?
I'm feeling good.
All right. So UFC 208 will take place in Brooklyn on February 11th, right? And we're debuting a new division. Let's talk about this featherweight division and what it's going to mean to you, because you're going to be the first, fighter to be able to participate in this division and go for this 145-pound belt. What does it mean to you?
I mean, I'm so thankful that the UFC has, faith in me and even lets me have this opportunity to fight for this belt. For me, as far as the fight, I want to win no matter what. I don't care if it's for a belt or not. I always want to win just as badly, but it's just, it's definitely a unique opportunity, and I'm really excited to be part of it.
Tell us a little bit about your opponent, Germaine Ronda. What do you expect from this match?
She's definitely well-rounded, but kind of more background is, stand-up fighter, like myself. So, who knows what's going to happen in there. I always want to be ready for any of it, but she's definitely tough. She's one of the few fighters I've ever fought, boxing or MMA, that's taller than me.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm usually the taller fighter, so we'll have a whole different game there.
So how have you kind of tweaked your preparation in order to prepare for that?
We are just at the beginning of a training camp. We haven't really gotten too into detail. We really do focus mostly on the techniques and the style of the fighter, not necessarily, a lot of, the range, but it will be a little bit different. She's only an inch taller than me. It's just, we're a little more even, I guess.
Okay.
So.
All right. So those other fights that you fight in where your opponent is shorter than you. So let's talk about some of those. Your last couple fights with Miesha Tate and Valentina Shevchenko. What can you take from those two fights, those two losses, and use for this fight?
Well, I've never been in this spot before. I've never had two losses in a row, and it's, it digs deep, but I don't. I want to learn from my mistakes, and obviously there was mistakes made in my last fights. Really, in all my fights, I try to learn. Even with victories, there's still things that aren't perfect in a fight. I just really, I always try to stay really focused during the entire fight, and I don't feel like I really was. I mean, my training camp was great for my last two fights. I have no excuses for my preparation. It was fine. But I don't know, I just feel like my focus wasn't there during the fight, and that's what I want to change here, because I did have a game plan. And if I would have done the things that we trained, my fights would have been better than the last.
That's kind of how it always goes, right? You prep one way and then it goes a different way. So how do you change that focus, or how do you get yourself more focused for this fight?
I think the mental game's the hardest part, but I feel like I have a drive right now. I've never been in this spot, and I feel like I have no choice to, I can't lose.
Are you kind of like out for a feeling of revenge now that, or to avenge those losses?
I definitely want to come back and just, really for me even, and for my coaches, I think that's one of the biggest things. My coaches and my teammates always work so hard to help get me prepared, and then I come up with losses. I feel like, not that they all love me just the same. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to do it for them too and make their hard work worth something.
Yeah, like you got a lot of people on your back, a lot of people rooting for you, a whole team. And how's your team handling this preparation, and how's your camp?
Oh, they're excited, as soon as we got the call. I mean, I went through, I want to say, at least 3 opponents before we got here with Germaine, and it was, my coach called, actually, one of my teammates that was at the gym, and he runs over, he's like, Coach Wink's on the phone. And I was like, I'm thinking, okay. And he goes,
were you thinking something's bad? Like what?
I didn't know. I'm like,
right.
When I answered the phone, he's like, hey, I know you're never by your phone, and Frank is, so I just figured I'd call him. This is it. This is the next fight. Of course, I'm always going to ask you what you think, but I think it's great. And I mean, as soon as the call came in for this fight, there was just this extra excitement about it from everybody around me, and so that's always kind of contagious feeling, So.
And that was the instant reaction when you got the phone call, excitement?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so the winner of this fight will be the featherweight champion. But someone who knows a thing or two about being the featherweight champion, Cris Cyborg, has had a thing or two to say about this division and about not being able to fight. She said that everyone knows I'm the featherweight champion. The real fans will know what's real. What do you think about those comments?
I'm really... I actually haven't really thought too far outside of just the fact that I have Germaine in front of me, and that's the fight ahead of me, and that's for the belt right now. And, we'll see what happens from there. I don't really get too involved with, a lot of the talk around it, because to me it's kind of wasted energy when I need to be focusing on Jermaine, not on any other fighters, not on the 135-pound division, which I would love to get that belt back as well. In a perfect world, that's what I would love, to hold them both at the same time, not just used to have one and now this one. In a perfect world, that's what I would love. But I can't think about 135-pound division. I can't think about anybody else in or anybody in the 135, 145. Just Jermaine.
Okay. Do you think that in the future you would want to fight Cris Cyborg? I know you don't want to think about her right now, but you're asked about her a lot. She talks about you a lot. She talks about other UFC fighters a lot. Would you ever want to have that be a fight that you would have?
I always say and I've said since the beginning, that I'm always open to a fight with Cyborg, and everything is timing and matchup, and we were maybe negotiating before they were saying they were going to open the 145 division. They were saying the catchweight at 140 was Cyborg, which I had said yes to, and turn of events.
Right.
Here we are. So,
yeah.
But like I said, one fight at a time, and we'll see.
Okay. And then looking into the future, Ronda Rousey is kind of always out there as potentially another fight that you could schedule and have a rematch with Ronda Rousey. Is that something you'd want as well?
I think that that'd be awesome. I think that obviously there's a big fight in front of her, and she's only thinking about Amanda Nunes right now. So that's kind of one of those things. You never know what's going to happen at the end of this month. Between December 30th and February 11th, there can be a lot of events that can change in certain ways. So who knows? But I definitely am open to a rematch for that. Like I said, I depends on how everything goes.
You're like, I won that fight, so I'll rematch. That'll be great to me.
Two things: when you've already fought someone, you feel them, and there's a confidence you can get from that too. But you also know that this person's back for revenge and bringing their A game tenfold. So it definitely, I think I've had a lot of rematches in my boxing career, and sometimes they come back just even harder and stronger. But I feel like everybody deserves a rematch. I've been on the losing end of it, and I wanted the rematch for revenge,
right?
And just to avenge that loss. And I've been on the other side of it where somebody wanted to come in. I feel like there's always that option.
Yeah, that revenge factor plays a huge key for sure. How has your life changed since you beat Ronda Rousey? Because I can imagine that there's a big difference.
It's definitely been busy, and it's definitely been, as far as training, I've always trained really hard. I've always had that there. Definitely there's, more attention on it, and it's more worldwide than just, what it was, my exposure was before. I try, my friends are still the same, my family's still the same, and my favorite restaurants are still the same, so it's just a little busy in between.
What's your favorite restaurant?
So, well, in town, there's if this, then that, but if you're going to go, sandwich shop, I'm going to go Cheese and Coffee. If you're going to go, like a New Mexican restaurant, our friends own La Salida. But I have a lot of places that I just like a good salad at Bravo, or we have a local place called The Range so I don't know.
What's your caloric intake versus how many calories you burn? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Really?
If I'm hungry, I eat.
And you've never measured it in terms
Never.
of? Wow, that's interesting. Because you hear sometimes, that athletes, like Michael Phelps, right? He'll talk about how he eats this many calories and burns this many calories, but you've never keeping track.
I've never had actually a dietitian that I talked to ever until my last fight, and it did help. I wound up having to lose the least amount of water weight the last day than ever before, and I guess I didn't really pay attention to much, but she would just say, why don't you cut this out and add this, or why don't you do this and that, and she would just I would meet with her just once a week, and she would just say, where's your weight, and check my body fat, and make sure, and ask how my energy was. So I still have never calculated my calories, and that's the first time I've ever even used anybody for diet at all.
That's really interesting, but it helped you.
It did.
Will you use
100%?
Will you use her going forward?
Yes, I'm using her right now.
Oh, great.
And I told her, hey, we're at 145 now, so what do we do?
Right.
I could make 145 tomorrow.
So what do you do? What changes did you have to make?
We're just gonna, keep a little bit more food intake up. Even a little more carbs in the morning when I wasn't doing so much. She's like, if you go run before sparring, by the time you get to sparring, you've already burnt through all your carbs, and
Right.
you're probably just trying to store on a fat because your body's going into like survival mode. So she's kind of just talking about that, and I didn't even think about it. It's like, I'll take some carbs in the morning.
Of course.
I mean, obviously good ones, but
what, like muffins, pancakes, waffles? Like, what are we eating here?
tons of syrup.
All of it. Just pour it all on. All the sugar you can take. Yeah.
I mean, I would kind of not really even do oatmeal after a while. And she's like, do some oatmeal. Get a couple tablespoons of honey, even if you're gonna have, I have like a cheese seed drink, or sometimes I like yogurt. She's like, don't do like icky yogurt. She's like, get the good stuff.
Right,
get
right.
some good. Put a couple of tablespoons of honey. That way, it's like good. It's not like refined sugars and stuff. I don't
Right.
know, just different ideas. So.
Okay. Let's talk about Conor McGregor a little bit, because he is a huge name in the UFC, and he goes and gets this boxing license, and you have a boxing background. So if he were to fight Floyd Mayweather, what do you think would happen in the ring?
Conor McGregor. So Floyd Mayweather is undefeated for a reason.
Uh-huh.
He's great.
Okay.
Right?
That's it. That's just...
But Conor is one of those that has really been able to pull out some crazy stuff.
Right.
Jumping up more than one weight class, getting lost, coming back the very next fight and beating the guy. He's been fighting for another belt after he'd already fought for, 2 fights for a different belt, and he always walks in and says he can do it, and he kind of shocks the heck out of people. But it's definitely a different world than just the boxing world, but I would never put my money on either one, because the only time that I ever even make like what I really think would happen in a fight is when my teammates are fighting. Other than that, I'm like, anything can happen in there. I don't know.
So what would the transition be like from someone going from MMA to boxing rather than the other way around?
I think that some of the habits that I had, I only know the habits I had to break coming from the boxing world.
Okay.
And in the boxing world, you can sit there inside and just inside box with them.
Uh-huh.
And then I would do that in MMA, and somebody would just drop on my legs or clinch me up, and I'm like, hey, we're supposed to just be punching each other right here,
Right. Yep.
So I think that that's one of those things, going from MMA to boxing, you probably can't rely on your clinch game
Yep.
or being able to go into your wrestling. Like, you have to really stick to just your striking and adapt a whole different inside boxing game there, which, yes, there's inside fighting in MMA as well, but it's coming out of the clinch a lot, and there's a lot of elbows, and you've got your underhooks and your whizzers and stuff like that. There's a whole different game, and you kind of have to lose that and just focus on that inside fighting. So
Okay, so if you had to pick one,
way.
Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather, who would you pick?
I can't.
Oh man! All right. I'll let you go.
Thank you.
We won't put you on the hook for that one. All right, Holly Holm joining us, UFC 208, February 11th at the Barclays Center. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you so much.